Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please
Jai.
accept all obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, please accept my humble glories.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai, Hare Krishna, Rukmini. All right, so start with the Mangala Charanam to get the blessings and from the acharyas and the lords, so we can have a little bit of insight here. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashtapraeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Jai, so welcome everyone. Please turn on your videos if humanly possible, so I can see you all. And today we're going to cover the first part of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5. Hopefully we get through texts 1 to 22. Last class we were talking about how Srila Vyasadeva, despite all of the great work that he had done in dividing up the Vedas into 4, in writing the Mahabharata, the Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, such great literary accomplishments, but still he wasn't satisfied with himself. He wasn't satisfied in his heart. And so he was feeling despondent. And then he started contemplating and introspecting, troubleshooting as to what might be the cause of his despondency. And he started coming to some realization that, oh, that may be that I didn't very clearly delineate the pastimes of the Lord. And just at that moment when he was, in that having a crisis in his writing career and trying to figure out what was wrong and having some inkling, then his spiritual master Narada Muni arrived on the scene. And so that's chapter 5 starts with Narada's instructions to Vyasadeva. So yeah, we left off with Srila Vyasadeva getting up, greeting Narada respectfully, worshiping him on an equal level of how one would worship Lord Brahma, the creator. Okay, so text 1. Suto vacha atatam sukham asina upasinam brihatshtravaha devarshi prahaviprarshim vinapani smayan iva. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sutta Goswami said, thus the sage among the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi among the Brahmins, Vedavyas. Okay, so question for you. Why would Vyasa's disappointment and despondency be a cause for Narada to be happy? Because we see here that he's smiling. So usually when we see someone depressed, it doesn't make us happy, right? But somehow Narada is thinking this is either amusing or wonderful, or he's smiling. So why is he smiling?
Just as a parent is very happy when the child is able to realize his or her mistake. So out of the paternal understanding of Vyasadev's situation, Narad Muni is probably smiling.
Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion.
And
Because,
this also
yeah, go ahead.
this also gives an opportunity for the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay, yeah, good. Rukmini?
Yeah, Naraji is happy because he's thinking now the time has come. His supreme Lord Krishna will be glorified. Now all Ketav Dharm will. Now he will give the instruction that no Ketav Dharm will be here in the Bhagavatam. Only the glories of Krishna will be here, and it will be most glorified for the generations to come.
Good. All right. Yeah. So it's actually a momentous occasion, you know, that Vyasa's dissatisfaction, it's a turning point. It's a point at which now we're going to change gears. And instead of talking about everything else under the sun, we're going to focus on Krishna. And so, yeah, Narada Muni is happy because he's going to get to glorify the process of bhakti. And that's what we see he does in his instructions. He's going to glorify Krishna, he's going to glorify bhakti, how it's better than anything else, how, you know, volumes and volumes of knowledge about other things is useless compared to just one word about bhakti. And we know that Narada Muni is a Shakti Vaishavatar, and he's particularly empowered with the Bhakti Shakti. So that's his whole mission in life, is to, you know, propagate bhakti, and he's empowered to do that. So he's delighted that now the preeminent importance of bhakti is going to be established. Yeah. And another reason why Narada is smiling is out of affection for Vyas. That's kind of what Ganga Shakti Mataji alluded to, is there's a very affectionate relationship between the spiritual master and disciple that's almost like a parent-child relationship. And so he's actually pleased with Vyas because, you know, you've actually done so many good things so far, and he's going to we're going to see how he's going to glorify the achievements of Vyas. So he's kind of also encouraging him that all the work that you've done up to this point, even though you're not satisfied, still it was a great achievement. You've still done so much already. And now, you know, it's not that all is lost. You just need to add more. You just need to, you know, really establish the essence of what you've given. So, and another way we see Narada's affection for Vyasa is in the way that he's going to instruct him. That, you know, his tone, it's like it's almost like a sarcastic tone, but you can see that it's sort of sarcastic, but not in a biting, you know, cutting way, but in a playful way. The way he speaks to Vyasa, it's sort of like affectionate, playful, joking way. So let's look at that, starting from text 2. Someone please read text 2, Sanskrit and English.
Narad vacha prashare mahabhaga bhagavata kadachimatmana paritushyati sharira atma manasa eva va. Addressing Vyasdev, the son of Parashar, Narad inquired, "Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as the object of self-realization?"
So he's, you see, he's asking, he comes with these rhetorical questions. Rhetorical question means he's not expecting someone to answer it. He's just like raising the point. So, and here he addresses him as Parasharya, the son of the powerful sage Parashara Muni. So he's making the point that, you know, you're the son of such a great sage who definitely knew the difference between body and spirit. So how can you identify the body or the mind as the self? Does this remind you of anything from Bhagavad Gita?
When Krishna was saying that you are talking like a learned Pandit, is that?
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So yeah, Krishna addresses Arjuna when he's lamenting there in the Battle of Kurukshetra in the 2nd chapter. He's saying, you know, you're the son of Prita, you're an Aryan. This lamentation does not become you. You're supposed to know the higher values of life, and yet you're acting just like a person who thinks that the body is the self. So it's almost the same exact tone, and he refers to the parentage, that you should know better than this. Like, This is not appropriate for you to be lamenting in this way and to be having these misconceptions. You should know better. So yeah, so his point here is through the question, he's actually making a statement or a point that gratifying the mind and senses through material gain will never actually satisfy the self. And he says this in the last sentence of the purport. Prabhupada says, one cannot be cheerful by nature unless one is factually seated in self-realization, which is transcendental to the material body and mind. So this, Krishna also makes a statement about this in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that real happiness is only on the transcendental platform. Does anyone know what that verse is? Priya Satyabhama, are you saying something? You're muted.
I'm a little, I mean, not confident. So I think Brahmabhuta Prasannatmana, the
Yeah, that's
Shoshati
the-
Nakamshati. I
Yeah,
was
so
just a little underconfident while saying it.
So you thought you would just mouth it without any sound? Yeah, that's the one. Good, very good. That's 1854. Yeah, so the idea is Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Prasannatma is, that's when you feel happiness. That's when you feel satisfied, when you're on the Brahma Bhuta platform of Brahman, above the bodily platform, above the mental, intellectual platforms. And yeah, and Krishna also says that devotional service is susukam kartum avyayam, that it's joyfully performed. So when we come to the transcendental platform of devotional service, that's when we can actually feel this cheerfulness. We can be cheerful in all of our activities when they're performed on the transcendental platform. And this is actually the happiness that we're meant for. As Lord Rishabhadev says in the 5th canto, the very first verse of the 5th chapter, he says, Nayam deho deha, bhajam nriloke, kastan karhan arhate, vid bhujamye. He says that of all those who have taken birth in the human form of life, they're not meant to enjoy the same happiness that is enjoyed by the hogs and dogs that eat stool. Vid bhujam means literally the stool eaters, the stool enjoyers, those for whom stool is their bhojan, vid bhujamye. So yeah, pigs and dogs, they eat stool and they like it, they get pleasure from that. But human beings are not meant to relish the same pleasure. We're meant for a higher standard of happiness. And then how do we achieve that? And what is that happiness that we're meant for? That he says in the second 2 lines of the verse, that tapo divyam putrika yena sattvam shudyat yasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam. That by tapo divyam, by performing some divine austerities, or in other words, by performing devotional service, then we can come to the Shuddha Sattva, the transcendental platform. And then on that transcendental platform, we can experience Brahma Sokyam, spiritual happiness, which is transcendental and much higher than any kind of material happiness, and which is Tvanantam. Ananta means without any end. It goes on forever. So yeah, we're meant for Brahma Sokyam because after all, we are Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. We are spiritual, so we are meant for this spiritual happiness. And we won't be satisfied with anything less. So the happiness from sense gratification that Rishabhadev also describes later, he calls it Indriyam Pritaya, Indriya Pritaya, that pleasure of the senses. That's a very low standard of happiness that the hogs and dogs get. So that's not what we're looking for. So that's the first fault that Narada is pointing out, is that Vyasa directed people towards achieving material happiness, just enjoying their senses through religion. So that's what he's pointing out in this verse to this question. Okay, let's go. Someone please read text 3.
Jigyasitam susupannam apitat mahad adbhutam kirvan bhartam yat tvam sarvartha Vaibhava. Your inquiries are full, your studies are all well fulfilled, and there is no doubt that you have prepared a great deal and wonderful book, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so here we see Narada's mood, although he's kind of chastising and pointing out the faults in Srila Vyasadev's work, he's not completely demolishing him. He's also recognizing that you have done a lot of really great work. So yeah, he's praising him now to encourage him, in order to encourage him that, yeah, you've done an excellent job writing the Mahabharata. And this shows that your satisfaction is not due to lack of knowledge, because you presented this work, which is Mahad Adbhutam. It's great. It's a great work. It's wonderful. It's Adbhutam. It's astonishingly wonderful. And it's full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. So you obviously have the knowledge, you know all these things. But yeah, and then let's go to text 4. Someone please read.
Jigyasitam adhitam.
Go ahead.
Jigyasitam adhitam cha brahma yattat sanatanam tathapi shochasi atmanam akritartha iva prabhu. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu?
Right, thank you. So yeah, so now he continues that not only have you shown the way of material prosperity and elevation through karma, through sacrifice, but you've also clearly described the transcendence, right? He says, Brahma yattat sanatanam. You've described the eternal Brahman. So yeah, we were mentioning in previous class how when Vyasa divided the Vedas into 4 parts, within each of those Vedas, he had 4 sections. So the first 2 were related to Karma Kanda, all the rituals for sacrifices. And the second 2 were Jnana Kanda, wherein he gave philosophical knowledge about Brahman and liberation and the liberated state. So especially the Upanishads. But the thing is that even in the Upanishads, there's very little information about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're just some hints. So, but still it's there. So he's pointing that out, that you fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman, as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. And then, like we were just saying, the transcendental platform, that Brahman platform, Brahma Bhuta, is supposed to be Nashochati Nakankshati. So then Narada Muni is specifically saying here in the 3rd line of text 4, Tatapi Shochashi. So then you've delineated Brahman, and it's supposed to be, Nashochati Nakanchati, without the platform where there's no hankering or lamenting. So then Tatapi Shochachi, why are you lamenting? It doesn't make sense. You've given Brahman, you're obviously on Brahman platform, still you're lamenting. So what's going on here? And then he says, he goes on to say, or actually he said, let's see, yeah, in the previous verse, he said, the last line, Sarvarta Paribrimhitam, that you've elaborately explained all valuable things. Sarva Arta means all Arta, all value, all purpose. So why are you feeling Akritarta? That's what he says in the last line of this verse. Akrita Arta. You've given Sarva Arta, so why are you feeling Akrita Arta? Like you've done nothing. Like Krita means that you've done, to have done something, and Akrita means you've not done anything. Arta, value. So why you've given everything, all the values, all the artas, the 4 Purushartas, valuable things for human beings. So why are you feeling like you've not done anything of value? You're not giving any arta or any substantial substance. So he's raising this question. And he's like, so what do you have to say for yourself, my dear Prabhu? And, he's saying Prabhu, which means master, although he's addressing his disciple. So this is also to encourage, he's encouraging Vyasadeva to be independently thoughtful. Like, I want you to think about this. And that's why I'm asking the question. That's why I'm raising the question. And I'm expecting you to be a Prabhu now, to really like be a person of substance. And this shows how Narada Muni is such an expert spiritual master, because a good guru doesn't just tell the disciple what to do, especially if it's a highly qualified disciple like Vyasadeva. You don't just tell them what to do, but you try to guide them to see things from a higher perspective and to think analytically about their situation so that they can understand what their shortcomings are. And we saw that in chapter 4 that Vyas was already doing this, and he had already identified his own deficiency. And it's likely that Narada Muni knew that also. He was aware of that. And he wanted to hear his disciples' own assessment of the situation as a way of understanding where the disciple is at, what conclusions the disciple is able to come to on his own. So Narada is trying to tap into that. But then Vyasadeva, because he's very humble, then he just puts the question back to Narada Muni. That's what we're going to see here in text 5. Someone please read text 5. Vyasadeva is going to reply.
Hare Krishna. Vyasauvacha asteva me sarvamidam tvayoktam tathapi natma paritushyati me tanamula vyaktam magada bodham prachamahe tvam bhavatma bhutam. Srila Vyasadeva said, all you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I am not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction. For you are a man of unlimited knowledge due to your being the offspring of one Brahma who is self-born without mundane father and mother.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's tat mulam avyaktam. He says here that despite my learning, the root of this problem, tat mulam, remains avyaktam, or it remains unmanifest or undetected. In other words, I can't understand what the root of the problem is. So Vyas here, although he's very learned, and although, as we were saying, he's already kind of knows what he needs to do, but he's presenting himself as a fool before his spiritual master. He doesn't say, yeah, I already gave some thought to this and I figured it out before you even got here. He doesn't speak like that to his spiritual master. So he's setting the example for us that even though we may be very learned, even though we may have some idea of what to do, we should still humbly inquire from our spiritual masters. That's our duty. At least, if we have some idea what to do, we should present that idea to the spiritual master for confirmation, for approval, and for blessings, just to get some feedback on whether we actually got it right. Because sometimes we come to conclusions and we think it's the best thing to do, and it's not actually the best thing to do. And also sometimes the solution that we come to may eradicate some superficial symptom of the problem, but it doesn't address the root of the problem. So that's what is mentioned, like tat mulam. I want to get to the root of the problem. I want to destroy the disease at the root, not just treat the symptoms, not just put a band-aid over it, but actually cure it. So this reminds me of one time when I was a new devotee. I was living in Scotland in that ashram there. And my guru at the time, my first guru, he had us all, he insisted that he instructed us all to do a complete nirjal fast every Ekadashi. So we were doing that. And at the same time, we were going out on book distribution all day. And it was, hard work. It was like book distribution and Scotland, it was hard because the people are very, they don't want to talk to anybody. They're very closed, very kind of cold people. It's a culture that's very kind of isolated, and cold country, cold culture, cold people. So it was just hard to get anyone to stop. Nobody wanted to talk to you. They would be rude to you. And you had to work so hard just to, distribute books up there. So I was fasting near Jalakadashi, and I was just getting so tired and so, kind of lightheaded from fasting. And I just didn't have the energy to go on approaching people. So I thought, well, if I just eat something, then I'll have some energy, and I can actually, I'll be able to distribute a lot more books than what I'm doing now in this like half dead state. So then I went to the market and I just bought a couple of apples, and I ate 2 apples, and then that just what's the word? It it brought up my blood sugar level so that I could have some energy. And then I got back into Sankirtan and I was doing much better. And, I distributed, a reasonable number of books. So then I went back to the temple. And then as soon as I went there, the first thing my Guru Maharaj asked me was, so did you observe the fast? And I was like, oh no, like why? Every other time I observed strictly near Jalakadashi. And this was the only time that I broke it. And this is the only time that he asked me if I observed it. See. So then I was like, I'm sorry, Guru Maharaj, I didn't. And then he said, what did you eat? I said, I just had some water and 2 apples. And then he said, why did you do that? And then I said, well, because I thought I'm out here to distribute books and I'm being totally useless because I have no energy and I can barely even talk to people. If I just can eat something, it'll give me some energy, physical energy, and I can work and I can do my service. So I thought it'd be favorable for my devotional service. So I accepted it on that principle. And then he said, you're thinking that it's favorable for your service, but the whole point of doing this near Jal fast is to, learn how to control your mind and learn how to control your senses. And if you can actually learn that, then, you can go on distributing books for your whole lifetime. But as long as you go on giving into your mind and giving into your senses, then you may be able to distribute more books one day. But how long are you going to be able to maintain this service? How long are you going to stay in Krishna consciousness? So he was, that was a very valuable lesson for me, that sometimes we're just looking at the immediate situation and how to just be able to function and do the job right now, like today, get it done, and we're not looking at the long term. So I ended up having to do Nirjal fast the next day, even though it was Dwadashi and I had only eaten 2 apples the previous day, but I did it. And I went out in Sankirtan and it was all okay. So, and I was able to continue book distribution for many years after that. So that's the root problem. In that case was the uncontrolled mind. And in Vyasadev's case, the root problem is that he was not clarifying the topic, the essential topic of the Bhagavatam. I'll just read the purport here to text 5. In the material world, everyone is engrossed with the idea of identifying the body or mind with the self. As such, all knowledge disseminated in the material world is related either with the body or with the mind. And that's the root cause of all despondencies. This is not always detected, even though one may be the greatest erudite scholar in materialistic knowledge. It is good, therefore, to approach a personality like Narada to solve the root cause of all despondencies. Why Narada should be approached is explained below. So, all right, let's just a second. So here Vyasa is glorifying Narada again, like we saw in the beginning of text 4, how the sages were glorifying Sutta Goswami to get him to speak. So in the same way, Vyasadeva is in text 5. He's also glorifying Narada Muni to get him to really elaborate on the cause of his dissatisfaction. And so he's using all these nice Sanskrit words. He's saying agadha bodham, that you have unfathomable knowledge, and atma bhavatma bhutam, that you are born, literally it means you're born from he who is unborn. In other words, you're the son of Lord Brahma. And Brahma is the first recipient of the Vedic knowledge, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikaveye. So he said that, you describe me as coming from a great lineage, being the son of Parashara Muni. But, what to speak of me, you are the son of Lord Brahma, who, that the Lord personally manifested Vedic knowledge within his heart. And now in text 6, he's going to continue glorifying Narada Muni. So please read text 6.
Save bhavan veda samasta guhyam upasito yad purushah puranaha pravaresho manaseva vishvam srajatya avatiyati guner asangaha. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature.
All right, yeah, so here he's saying Veda samasta guhyam, that you know all the confidential secrets of the Vedas, because upasito yat purusha purana, because you worship the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by this worship, then, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te, that the one who always worships me with love, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So he's saying that because upasito yat purusha purana, because you always worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then Veda samasta guhyam, you know the confidential secrets of the Vedas, because Krishna has revealed that to you, because that's what Krishna does. That's what Krishna says he does in Bhagavad Gita. And also in the Bhagavatam, it said that Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayajityaha Janai Yat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahaitukam, that by Bhakti Yoga to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one automatically gets causeless knowledge and detachment. Yeah, Vairagya and Jnanam. They come seemingly without cause. They just come. They come from Krishna. So by performing devotional service, we automatically get knowledge. By worshiping the Lord, the confidential secrets of the Vedas are revealed to us. So he's glorifying Narada Muni in this way. And then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, a person who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord is the emblem of all knowledge. Such a devotee of the Lord, in full perfection of devotional service, is also perfect by the qualification of the personality of Godhead. As such, the eightfold perfections of mystic power, Ashta Siddhi, constitute very little of his godly opulence. All right, so now I want to ask you, because Prabhupada is saying that a devotee is perfect. So how is a devotee perfect? And also, what great powers does a devotee have that make the 8 mystic siddhis seem insignificant?
Because he's experiencing the connection with the Lord, and Lord is all powerful, so he's holding all those qualities.
Okay, yeah, so that's drawing from the purport that says that the devotee who is perfect in devotional service is also perfect by the qualification of the personality of God. So Krishna has all the powers. Krishna has all intelligence, and he can qualify us by our. He can reward us with those qualifications because he has them to give. He has those gifts to bestow upon us, and he will bestow them when he's pleased with us. Okay, any other thoughts? Maybe as to what powers does a devotee have that make the mystic cities seem insignificant?
A devotee, practically speaking, has the power to control the supreme, who is the Yogeshwar, who is the controller of all the mystic powers. So devotee practically speaking, can control the Yogeshwar from that
All right,
perspective.
good. Yeah, that's one of Krishna's qualities, that he's controlled by love. So, mystic yogis, they may be able to control people's minds. They may be able to control their, bodies. They can make themselves smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest. They can control the way things work in this material, manipulate material elements. But devotees can control the supreme controller of everything. So, that's a much greater power. If somebody can just produce some ashes from their hand or turn iron into gold, who cares? It's all just mundane, it's material stuff. Such people have no influence over the Lord. But due to the loving exchanges in rasa, the devotees can actually induce the Lord to act in certain ways, and sometimes take a superior position to the Lord, like Mother Yashoda. Okay, good.
Mataji, as we Vancha Kalpatru Vakshacha, the meaning of this, that devotees are like a desired tree. Because Krishna can be purchased only by devotees, and devotees are like the desired tree. If they pray for any other soul, Krishna cannot refuse to sanction the prayer of his pure devotee. So how powerful the devotee is.
Yeah, that's also an excellent point. That the devotees are more merciful than Krishna. So they're also, what to speak of, mystic cities. The devotees can bring somebody back to Godhead just by their desire. Even if Krishna is thinking the person's not qualified, oh, okay, you want him to come? Okay, fine. I'll bring him, let him come. And then he arranges for that soul to become purified very quickly. So they become qualified. Okay, good. So it's nice to hear the glories of devotees here. And Vyasadeva is going to continue in this vein of glorifying Narada Muni. So let's read text 7.
Tvam paryatan arka iva trilokin antascharo vayur ivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmatmo vartai snasasya nanyunam alam vichakshva. Translation. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive super soul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows.
Thank you. So, he's saying that spiritual master, he's talking to Narada Muni, but you could say that this is the spiritual master in general is Arka Eva, like the sun. That, this is more specifically Narada Muni because he literally travels throughout the three worlds. Paryatam Trilokim. And like the wind, Vayu Eva, penetrates the hearts of everyone. Anta Charaha. And then he says also, you are Atma Sakshi. So Sakshi means the witness. He said, and Atma Sakshi, you're the witness of the activities of the self. And So all these are qualities of the super soul also. So he's basically equating Narada Muni as the super soul. And, you know, Prabhupada would say that the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the super soul. So just as the super soul is upadrastanumantascha, is overseeing everything, understands the situation of the soul exactly. So the super soul is the best person to guide us. And so he's saying, you know, to Narada Muni, you know everything about me, just like the super soul. You know everything about me, so you know what my deficiencies are. So please point out my deficiencies. Tell me how I can improve. And this is a nice attitude for devotees to have in general, is to want to know what our deficiencies are and to want to know how to improve. So we can also do this, you know, approach our spiritual masters, approach our mentors, senior devotees, and humbly ask them to tell us, please tell me 3 things that I'm doing wrong. 3 things that, well, we can ask them first, maybe it might be easier for them. Tell me 3 things that I'm doing that are good, that 3 things that I'm doing okay. Because the senior devotee won't like to point out your faults immediately, at least. So if you ask him, tell me 3 things that I'm doing okay, and then 3 areas where I can improve. And then, and see what they say, you know, get some feedback. Because sometimes, you know, we're going through life and we have some, you know, issues that senior devotees can see very clearly. In fact, sometimes everybody can see it except us. You know, and it's kind of embarrassing when you find out that everybody sees this fault that you have and you weren't even aware of it. Just like, oh, sometimes we're just really blind to our own defects. So yeah, it's good to check in with senior devotees and find out where's our room for improvement. And I also want to discuss this point that because this is a very high claim, you know, that the spiritual master is the external representation of the super soul. So my question is, does the living guru really know everything the Paramatma knows? And if so, how do they know? And if not, then why are they compared to the Paramatma? Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
The living guru only knows as much as the super soul thinks it is fit to be known to the spiritual master. That's all the super soul will reveal to the spiritual master. That is what is required, and that's it.
Right. Okay, good. That's what Prabhupada said, right? He said, I don't know everything. I'm not omniscient, but I know whatever Krishna needs me to know. Krishna makes me aware of whatever I need to know to be able to do my service for him and for you, for my disciples. Good. And how does the guru come to know those things?
Through parampara.
What's that?
Through parampara, he has come to know from his guru, and his guru has come to know from his guru. So like that, I mean, descending order.
So, but how does it come through parampara? Because it's not always something that the previous guru, it's not that the previous guru, you know, his direct guru told him necessarily, right?
Is it through the spiritual master's connection with the super soul?
Yeah, so how does that take place? How is the knowledge conveyed to the heart and mind of the guru?
From the super soul of the disciple to the guru?
Yeah, so the same super soul that's in the heart of the disciple that knows the whole situation of the disciple, is that same super soul is in the heart of the guru. So then, yeah, super soul's like a spy that knows everything that's going on with everyone at every moment. So the spiritual master has his spies out there in our hearts. It's like we're all bugged, like we all have a bug there that is hearing and seeing everything that we say and do, and can convey all that to the super soul. Can convey all that to the bug is the super. I mean, I don't need to call him a bug, but the bug that I'm talking about, that if you get bugged, then they can know what you're saying. So that information can be conveyed to the spiritual master. But it's like, if you bug someone, just like nowadays, there's like video cameras for security. So somebody could, watch the video for, 24/7, what happened, at the entrance of the department store or something, but it would just be so boring and useless to know. You don't need to see that 24/7. But if there's a crime and, you need to find out who broke into the department store and, ran away with all the goods, then you look at the video for that day at that time, and then you can identify the criminal. So same way, there's so much information that the guru doesn't need to know about us, and would probably be pretty bored to know, or, but if there's something that needs to be known, then that video will be watched, that will be shown to the spiritual master by the power, divine potencies of the super soul. Okay. All right. So now Narada Muni, because he understands the complete situation, now he's going to give his diagnosis. So let's read both texts 8 and 9, please.
Hare Krishna. Shri Narada Uvacha Bhavatanudita Prayam Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yenevasau Natushyeta Manye Taddarshanam Khilam. Translation. Shri Narada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and the spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless." Text 9. Yatha dharma dayaschartha muni varyanu kirtitaha na tatha vasudevasya mahima yanuvarnitaha. Translation. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality Vasudeva. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you. So here Narada Muni is pointing out 2 defects. First, you have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord. He says, Anuditam Prayam. You have almost not described him at all. That's what it means there. Prayam means almost, and Anuditam means not at all. Like you haven't, it's like you barely described him, practically not at all. Because the Lord's qualities are unlimited. His pastimes are unlimited, and the glories of his name and form are also unlimited. So Vyasa may have described a few things, like Sri Upanishad, there's some indication of the importance of the personal form of the Lord. In Padma Purana, there's some pastimes and some descriptions. In Mahabharata, we have the Bhagavad Gita. So Vyasa could have argued that I've described the Lord's form and qualities in the Padma Purana and other places. And so to this objection, Narada replies, text 9. Yeah, okay, but you've given so much more emphasis to mundane dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And because you've given so much of that, then the actual things about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the way to worship him through devotional service, it's just so obscured. It's like, the descriptions of the Lord are so few and far between that they practically get lost. And it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, right? There's so much hay there, and there's one tiny little needle hidden somewhere, and you could just totally miss it. So that's So that's defect number 2, is that you've overemphasized these 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So defect 1 is you haven't sufficiently glorified the Lord. And number 2 is that you've overemphasized other things apart from the Lord. So Narada Muni is saying is that, so your work is insufficient. In other words, you're not done yet. It's not enough. What you've given a lot, but it's not enough. And, the proof of the pudding here is that you're not satisfied. So your whole mission was to try to, is to benefit people. You're thinking about the welfare of humanity and how they can be happy and satisfied in their lives. But how will people be satisfied with this if even you're not satisfied? And then, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that Narada Muni further says that though you've described the glories of the Lord in, some places, there's several places where you've mentioned the Supreme Person, but you've described them only as a means of getting moksha. How hearing the glories of the Lord purifies one from material contamination so that one can be liberated. So in that way, you've inadvertently misled people to think that liberation is the goal. So we also have to be careful, when we talk about devotional service, and we say, yeah, chanting is good because it purifies the heart, or hearing pastimes is good because it purifies our consciousness. It frees us from material desires and material attachments. Yeah, it does all those things, but that's not the ultimate goal. That's not the goal of our chanting. That's not the goal of our hearing about Krishna. The goal is to become attached to Krishna, to develop love for Krishna, and to, develop the feeling, the eagerness, intense eagerness to serve Krishna. So this thing about, if we emphasize too much on the purification, because that's relevant for new devotees, because they're struggling with so many anarthas and so many difficulties, and they really feel like, I need to get rid of these, I need to get purified. But if we stress that too much, then we might be making the same mistake that Vyasadeva is making. That worshiping the Lord is just to get liberation, is just to get free from material sufferings and all of our material desires that are bothering us and all that. That's not the goal. That's just a step. That's actually just a side effect. That's just a automatic side effect. We don't even have to try for that. That just happens by the grace of Krishna. And that's just another reason why we should love Krishna, is because he does that for us. Shrimvatan Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, that he's seated in the heart and he cleanses the desire. Vidyantasto Hyabadrani Vidunoti Suritatam. He cleanses all these material desires from our hearts when we hear his messages, not just so we can, be free from material desires, but so that we can serve him without disturbances. And the fact that he does that for us, that he takes up that service of cleaning our hearts, we should feel immensely grateful to him for that. So, yeah, we were talking about the Brahma Bhuta stage and how it's the stage where there are no more material miseries, but that's just the beginning. It's like, sometimes material life is called a disease. So let's say you have a disease and you're bedridden, it's just really bad. You're like, you can't do anything. So you're in your bed and you're just weak and you've got a fever and you can't eat, you can't think, you're just like really sick in bed. So then you take some medicine, you get some treatment, and gradually your disease conditions go away. So your fever went down, your body stopped aching, your nausea went away or whatever. And now you're feeling good, but you're still just lying in bed. So that's kind of like liberation. Liberation is like, okay, you're not diseased anymore. You're not sick anymore. You're not suffering anymore, but you're still just lying in bed doing nothing. So spiritual life, means get out of bed. You're not living a healthy life while you're still just lying in bed. So the point, like, healthy life means get out of bed and do something, do your activities and live your life. So for that, then we need to know what to do. So devotional service is like, okay, you're not suffering anymore. Now it's time you can actually, now you can live your life. So now like get up and do something. So then we need to know what to do. And what is the purpose that needs to be fulfilled? We need to, what service do I need to do? Who do I serve? How do I serve? And so we need to know about Krishna. And we need to know what pleases Krishna, what Krishna likes, how one can engage in Krishna, the different relationships one can have in the service of Krishna, whether I'm going to serve him as a servant or a friend or a parent or a lover, and what those services entail, how to do those services. We need to know all this if we're going to actually live a real life, live a real spiritual life in relationship to Krishna. And that's what it means to be complete. Right? Like, in Isha Upanishad, with that verse, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, the invocation, where Prabhupada talks about in the purport that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is perfectly complete, and everything that emanates from him is also complete in itself. And we are also emanations of the Lord. So why are we feeling incomplete? And he says there that any feelings of incompleteness are due to incomplete understanding of our relationship with the complete whole. So it's interesting that our completeness, we are complete in ourselves, but we're only complete if we actually know ourselves. And who are we? Jivera Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadas. So we are eternal servants of Krishna. So our completeness depends on a connection of Krishna, because that's who we are. We are connected to Krishna. We are eternal servants of Krishna. And so our incompleteness, feelings of incompleteness, are due to the artificial disconnection from Krishna that we've imposed on ourselves by our attraction to the illusory energy and our subsequently being covered by it. So because we're eternal servants of Krishna, unless we know about Krishna, we can't really live our real lives. We'll just remain like even if we don't have material attachments anymore, even if we're liberated, but we'll just stay in this sort of spiritual limbo, which is unsustainable, because it's not who we are. We can't, like you can pretend to be somebody else for a certain time, but sometimes it's like you're in a social situation and you're trying to be somebody that you're not, because you think, oh, these people are really super high class, or they're super whatever. You understand the mood of other people, and you're trying to fit in. That's kind of like a human tendency, that we try to fit in with the group of people that we're working with, and we try to adopt some of their ways and values and all that, but that may not be our actual philosophy of life. It may not actually be who we are. So we can do it for some time, but you can't sustain that. You can maybe do it for a few hours, but or when you're first getting to know someone, sometimes like with husband-wife relationship, before they're married and they're getting to know each other, they're all trying to be like the perfect person, so that they'll be accepted, and but then after marriage it all tends to sometimes change, because they were pretending to be somebody that they weren't, just so that the other person would like them and accept them and agree to marry them. But it's not sustainable, because ultimately you're going to be who you are. That's what Krishna tells Arjuna, that a person who tries to we shouldn't be a pretender. Repression, we can't repress our real selves, our real nature. It's going to come out. So we shouldn't delude ourselves. A person who does that is called a pretender. Mityachara, he uses that word. So we need to come back to who we really are, and we are active. The soul is active, and we are servants of Krishna. So the activities that the soul has to do is serving Krishna. So for that, we need to know Krishna, and therefore any literature which doesn't describe the Lord is basically useless. And that's what Narada Muni is going to say in the next verse. So let's read text 10.
Nayadvachaschitra-padam harir-yasho jagat-pavitram pragranita karhichit tadvayasam tirtham ushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramanti ushikshayah. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can satisfy the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
Thank you. So can someone explain this analogy of the crows, place of pilgrimage for crows? How is that related to books that don't glorify the Lord?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Crows are always sitting on filthy place. They don't like to sit on nice place. They eat filthy. So that's why it is said to be pilgrimage for crows, because the literature which does not describe about Krishna and the glories of Krishna is useless and is a place of pilgrimage for crows.
Okay, yes, so this is very heavy language, because we see the kind of places that crows go. They flock around garbage dumps, or if there's a dead carcass on the side of the road, crows will be there. So yeah, so people who have this mentality like crows, then they gravitate towards literatures that don't describe the Lord. They don't have a taste for the higher things. They go for something which is useless garbage, or useless like a dead body. And can anyone think of any other analogies or verses from Shastra that make a similar point?
Croaking of the frogs.
Okay, what about it?
Prabhupada explains that any other discussion which has nothing to do with the Lord is like the croaking of the frogs, which just continually attract the snakes to come and, prey on them.
Okay, good. Yeah. So people who read these types of things, who talk about them, because after reading, they don't just read, then they talk about it. That becomes their subject matter for contemplation and conversation. And then all that speech becomes just the croaking of frogs. That it's saying, Maya, come and cover me, keep me in illusion, birth after birth, basically.
In Bhagavad Gita as well.
Yes, Prabhu?
In Bhagavad Gita, it is also mentioned that for Gyani it is day, and for those who are ignorant it is Ratri. Something like that. So,
good.
Yeah. So it is day for the those devotees, and it is night for the materialistic persons. So the materialistic persons day is night for the
Right.
devotees.
Okay, so just showing how non-devotees and devotees, they're attracted to just totally opposite things. Right? The devotees, they just want to hear about the Lord, and the non-devotees, they want to hear about everything else, not except the Lord. Like, don't talk to me about religion, right? Okay, Priya Satyabhama.
Mataji, similar analogy comes when it comes to houseflies and honeybees. That houseflies always, dwell on the garbage, whereas honeybees look for the nectar. So similarly, it is said for devotees and non-devotees as well, that devotees tend to, go towards the activities that, help in devotional service, whereas non-devotees get attracted towards the opposite activities.
Yeah, so very similar. The fly goes for the pile of stool or dead thing, and the honeybee goes for the nectar from the flowers. So devotees look for good qualities in others, and the non-devotees, or just, people who are not very nice, they try to find fault with others. Okay, Rukmini Harisevani.
Mataji, I read in the purport only. They were saying that what the mundane people think, or what other scriptures does, it's just a decoration on a dead body. If body is dead, what is the meaning of decorating that body? So that the talks and other things are just a decoration on the dead body, and spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swamps do not take pleasure in such dead literatures. So they are only interested in Krishna Katha and literature which is about Krishna and spoken by Krishna.
Okay, good. Yeah, so decoration on a dead body, because it's all just these literatures that don't have anything to do with Krishna. It's all about material stuff. It's just material knowledge that stimulates the mind, stimulates the mundane intellect. But and decoration, he calls it decoration on a dead body because the word chitrapadam, which means decorative. Prabhupada translates it decorative. So it may be very decorative. It may be full of metaphors and similes and beautiful, literary decorations, but it's all just decorations on a dead body, because it all just has to do with matter, and matter is all just, ignorant. Like we sing, Sharirar avidyajal. This body is a lump of ignorance. So things in relation to the body, it's all just ignorance. So it's not beneficial. Yeah. Some other verses that I thought of were, there's a couple from the second canto of the Bhagavatam, like when Shukadeva Goswami says, men who are like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, the deliverer of evils. So it's another animal analogy. And then, Shukadeva also says in the beginning of his instructions, second canto, he says, Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrashaha. That people who are materially engrossed and who are blind to the absolute truth, they have hundreds and thousands of subject matters for hearing. Nrinam Santi Sahasrashaha. So devotees, we have Vishnu Sahasranam, 1,000 names of Vishnu, and non-devotees, they have their thousands of subject matters, useless subject matters that, if you just go to any like bookstore or library, or nowadays, especially online, there's just practically unlimited mundane subject matters for hearing. Like you can just scroll Facebook forever, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all these different places. So but one of the qualities, like Prabhupada mentions in the purport, one of the qualities of a devotee is they're like a swan. So they have this ability to swans can separate milk from a mixture of milk and water. So devotees also, a saintly person, Prabhupada quotes Chanika Pandit, others from the next verse. He talks about how a great thinker, an intelligent person, is able to pick up gold even from a filthy place. So like the swan. So whenever we can use these things, like we can go to a public library and find, maybe Prabhupada's book there, or some book that we can use to help us in whatever service we need to do that might require some mundane information. We can go online and find so many nice classes by different, devotees in ISKCON Desire Tree. And there's so many devotees have blogs and things like that nowadays. So, but even then we need to be very selective and very careful, because even on devotee blogs and devotee posts, there's no screening. It's not like there's some it's not like the Shastric Advisory Committee is going through and screening all those posts to make sure that they're philosophically correct and true information. So even in devotee websites where devotees write things or post on their Facebook page or something, it can also be something that's philosophically deviant, or it can be blasphemous. Like one time I was looking at Facebook and someone had posted a nice picture of my spiritual master. So I thought, let me see. Here's some glorification of my spiritual master. because the picture was very nice. It was like a really attractive picture. And so I started reading it. And it was just so much like criticism. I was like, that was a trap. It was like I took the bait, seeing the nice picture, and then I fell into the trap of hearing blasphemy of my spiritual master. So it was just really, it's dangerous. You can hear a lot of stuff that contaminates your mind, even by devotees on these platforms. So the thing is that when you go into a dirty place looking for gold, you may come out with some gold nuggets, but because there's so much dirt there, then it's likely that you're also going to get a little dirty. So we have to be super careful, very selective about our sources of information online, even in posts by ISKCON devotees. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from this purport here.
Mataji?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate further on this, on choosing how to choose it, something like that? You said shouldn't filthy. Can you elaborate further on that? Because most of the information is coming online.
Yeah.
So can you give some more hints?
Yeah, so sometimes, we go online because we want to hear a class, but then you need to be careful who you hear from. So you need to know, who's the qualified speaker. That's why we're, studying the Bhagavatam, all these, the qualities of a bona fide speaker and the qualities of a bona fide hearer. And it's not that everybody who, wears devotional clothes and tilak and says something is saying something that's going to help us. So we need to, use our discrimination in a positive way to, decide who's a person to hear from out of all the options. Who are we going to hear from? And we can, if you're not sure, then you can consult a senior devotee. Like that happens to me all the time, that the young devotees here at the preaching center where I'm at, they'll come to me, I heard a class by this person. Are they a safe person to hear from? Is this person a good devotee? I like the class. Can I go on hearing from them? They'll always ask me or a couple of other senior devotees here, and then we'll tell them. And sometimes I'll say no, like don't hear from that devotee. They may be saying some nice things, but sometimes they have wrong attitude. Like they'll say something actually that's shastric, but they'll say it with a lot of pride, or to try to point out like a fault in somebody else, or they'll present it in an imbalanced way. So it's good for senior devotees to kind of like screen these things for the younger devotees, to make sure that they avoid pitfalls in their spiritual life by hearing from the wrong person. And Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says that we need to discriminate between these different kinds of devotees. Mentally honor anyone who's chanting Hare Krishna, but not necessarily hear from them. And then offer our obeisances to, those who have taken initiation, who are following the process guided by a spiritual master. But then really the one that we should accept as a spiritual master, the one that we should really try to hear from, is the Uttama Adhikari, the one who's completely free from all propensity to criticize others. Because a lot of what we see on the internet is very critical of others. And so as soon as you see that, that's not the person to hear from, because the person that I need to hear from is the one who's completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Like that. So, it's something that we need to be very careful about. And so if you're not sure, and also that's another reason why it's so important to do what you're doing right now, to study the scriptures, to really know the Shastras. Because then if somebody says something that's philosophically wrong, it's wrong, because you know what Shastra says. And so, that's why we have Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So the Guru and Sadhu, their statements need to be backed up by Shastra. And if it's not, then, then we need to think twice before we accept that apparent sadhu as a guru. You know what I mean? As a shiksha guru. So yeah, and also if somebody is saying something and they're not citing some source, then I'll always question it. I'll always question, like, where did you hear that from? Where did you get that from? And we should also be able to back up everything that we say with Shastra whenever, especially, I mean, not if you're talking about the weather or something, but, you know, like whenever you're preaching or, you know, answering a question, you should be able to back it up. Even if you don't, you know, say the verse, but you should know that you read that in Shastra somewhere. Prabhupada said that in his purports or in a class or like that. It should be, and that's austerity of speech. That one of the aspects of a truthful, pleasing, beneficial, also reciting Vedic literature. And I think it's there in the purport that Prabhupada says that we should be able to back up every statement, every philosophical statement, at least that we make, with some Shastric reference. And that's austerity of speech. Not saying anything that is not supported by Shastra.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So yeah, here in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how there's different kinds of literatures for different kind of people, because people have different mentalities. And most of what's on the market is in the crow category, place of pilgrimage for crow category. He says it's just the refused remnants of sensuous topics. So he calls it the refused remnants. Who is it refused by? It's refused by people who have a higher taste. Just like, you know, stale food, some food that's stale or old or rotten, it'll be discarded by a human being, but it'll be eaten by a crow. So in the same way, these literatures that devotees are like, no, that's just not interesting. It's not useful. It's totally not, it's just useless. So devotees refuse it, but it's accepted by men who are in the crows category, as Prabhupada says. And they're generally known as mundane talks in relation to the gross body and subtle mind. And they don't even though they may be beautifully composed, but they don't glorify the Lord. And so, yeah, Prabhupada says, spiritually advanced men who are compared to swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. And so Prabhupada makes these strong statements, very like, I mean, it's a beautiful sentence here. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. People who are dead, they like dead things, but people who are alive, people who are actually alive, living a spiritual life, which is the only real life, which is the only true life, is spiritual life, because we're spiritual beings. Material life is not life, it's just death, because the body is dead and we're not material. So those who are spiritually alive, they're attracted to literatures which are also full of life. And the only life is spiritual life. So the literatures which talk about spiritual life, promote spiritual life, tell you how to live a spiritual life, and the purpose of spiritual life, which is to connect to Krishna. And who is Krishna, the person that we're trying to connect with? And those are what spiritually alive people are attracted to. So, Jeev Jago. We need to wake up and be alive. Okay. So now he's going to talk about those literatures. He's going to describe those literatures that spiritually alive people are attracted to. So text 11.
Tadvag visargo janatag viplavo yasmin pratishlokamabadhyavatyapi namanyanantasya yashonkitani yat shrinvanti gayanti grinanti sadavaha. Translation. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even Even the imperfectly composed are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, so we were talking about how devotees have this swan-like quality of being able to find gold even in a filthy place. But now this verse is taking it to the next level. Like, we're not just trying to find gold in a filthy place. We're trying to change the filthy place. We're trying to revolutionize the polluted atmosphere of the world. And then this verse is explaining how to do that is by writing literatures which describe the name, fame, form, pastimes of the Supreme Lord, just flooding the market, with these literatures, flooding the internet with transcendental sound vibration and transcendental articles about Krishna and Krishna's qualities and, Shastra. So, and this way we can revolutionize the whole platform. We can revolutionize the world. So that was, Prabhupada wanted to flood the world with transcendental literature. Okay, counteract all these other influence of Kali Yuga and all these dead literatures, which are just killing, which are quelching the vitality of people. Okay, so I had asked you to go through this purport and identify aspects of Prabhupada's mood and mission. Would anyone like to share one thing, either a mood or a mission? And then when you say, also give reference to where in the purport you got that from. Yes, Rukmini.
Mataji, 5 points I have noted down. First is
Okay, just tell us one for now,
okay,
so that everyone gets a chance.
There is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world.
Okay,
So this one point.
Is that a mood or a mission?
Mataji, I was confused. I thought talking to Prabhupada mood, I can see in this that he mood and the mission also.
Both?
I was not able, yes, in this statement both.
Mission is something that Prabhupada wants to do. And then mood is more about his qualities. So I think what you said is mainly a mission. Right? Say it again.
Yes, Mataji. There is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is a duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good as well as to bring out the desired peace in the world.
Okay, so there's actually like three distinct things that you could say. So one mission is to disseminate transcendental knowledge all over the world. The second mission is to inspire Indians to do it, because India is the land of religion, and to inspire them to, go out to other parts of the world and share this knowledge. And then the third part is to bring about peace and prosperity in the world through transcendental knowledge. So these are all things that we want to do. They're all things we want to accomplish. So those are missions. Okay. All right. Priya Satyabhama.
So Mataji, going down further, Prabhupada writes, in the purport, that the mass of people in general are tools in the hands of modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature conveying the transcendental messages for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. So I think here Prabhupada is trying to, tell that it's kind of both. At least this is what I felt, when it comes to mood and mission, that Prabhupada wants to bring God consciousness so that, there can be peace and the polluted environment can be changed from being dirty to spiritual. So
yeah.
This is what I.
Yeah, and he specifically wants to change the hearts of the leaders. So that's an aspect of mission. And we saw how Prabhupada did that. At least he tried to do that, he really was keen to meet with like political leaders, celebrities, anybody who was like an influential person in society. Prabhupada wanted to meet with, professors like that. So he wanted to change the hearts of the leaders because he thought, well, if the leaders do it, then yad acharati shreshtas, that the common people are going to follow the example set by the leader. And in that way, there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. So mission is to influence the leaders, to make them Krishna conscious, and then through those leaders to change the atmosphere of the world and to revive the consciousness of the people in general. Okay. All right. Something else?
Then Mataji, there is one mention regarding the spirit of cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
That is also the mood of Prabhupada to use cooperation in propagating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay, where does it say that? Did you make a note of?
Yeah, Mataji, the same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's a mood that Prabhupada had, that he wanted to cooperate. And he tried to work with his god brothers. Nobody would work with him. So then he made his own disciples. And then he always encouraged them to work cooperatively. He thought, this is not one man's job. We need a lot of help with this. We need everyone to cooperate and combine their efforts. Okay, good. What else? There's a lot of moods. I actually had, I think, like 9 different moods, aspects of mood.
In the beginning of the purport, Mataji.
Let's take Rai Ramananda Prabhu first and then Ganga Shakti.
Thank you, Madam. Hare Krishna. In last of the line of the purpose, one of the mission, it is mentioned that there should be the systematic propaganda for popularizing the reading of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like a sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature, the other literature, which are carrying poison to society, will then automatically cease. So, Prabhupada is stressing on that point.
Yeah, that's a mission, to popularize the reading of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's a big job for us because, we're distributing so many Bhagavad Gitas and Srimad Bhagavatams, but most parts of the world, at least, it's not popular. It's not like best-selling literature. We have to really like push people to buy it and say all kinds of things to get them to take it, right? It's not like people are flocking to the bookstores and lining up like, it has to be like, when the Harry Potter novels first came out and everybody was going crazy about them and like billions of copies sold on the first day or something. It has to be like that, that when the next Krishna conscious book is published, it's like millions of people, they're like standing in a line at 2:00 in the morning outside the bookstore to get the copies before they run out. We have to really popularize them. And that's up to us also to present these literatures in a way that's attractive to people and relevant to them so that they will want to buy it. Okay. All right, something else? Oh, Ganga Shakti Mataji.
Mataji, in the beginning of the purport, Prabhupada mentions that it is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best, even from the worst. This is a very integral part of his mood. Like he never looked at the qualification of people that he was giving the highest knowledge to. So he wants us to carry on the same mood, that we should disseminate this knowledge and Krishna consciousness to all and sundry without any consideration of their qualification. And also within our society and community also, we must uphold this mood and not look at each other's faults and only look at each other's, the qualities that we have, the others have, so that we can function properly and keep Krishna at the center of everything that we do.
Good. Yeah, very, very good point and well said. Yeah, this is the mood of Lord Chaitanya, not considering who's qualified and who's unqualified, just distributing the love of God to everyone, every man, woman, and child who will take it. And then, yes, of course, if we're going to cooperate, then we have to work together. We have to focus on the good, appreciate everyone for their good qualities and their contributions. It's very important. All right, thank you. What else?
Mataji, one of the mood that Srila Prabhupada is saying that we are focused on the techniques, not focus on the concerned with the techniques and not with the language to broadcast this transcendental message. So that's the mood that, he's not going into Sanskrit language or that language. He's interested in what is the technique, how can we broadcast this message, and that's his main point. That's the mood.
Okay, good. Yeah. And also it's kind of like, valuing the principles over the details, right? Giving the essence, being a Saragrahi Vaishnava, right? Grasping the essence and delivering, passing on the essence. And also I felt like that statement about the language, they were not concerned with the techniques and not the language. It kind of hinted that that Prabhupada wanted these literatures to be translated in all the different languages of the world. So, it's not that people have to learn Sanskrit to read Chaitanya, to read Bhagavatam, or learn Bengali to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, but we can, the language is not important, it's the message, the essence. So we can just translate it into any language, and if they understand it in their own language, that's good. Like that. Okay. More?
Hare Krishna. Mataji, here Prabhupada wanted modern politicians and leaders to take the message of Srimad Bhagavatam so that people in general can follow it. I mean, it is written here that the mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. And this, Prabhupada thought that it would be his initial vision of how Krishna consciousness would spread would be like a top-down approach. You can influence the leaders, influence the influencers, and they can influence others to become Krishna conscious, right? Like we saw under the reign of, Parikshit Maharaj and Prithu Maharaj, that the world was, very Krishna conscious. But then it didn't quite work out that way because Prabhupada didn't get support from from many leaders. And so he ended up doing more of a bottom-up approach, right? Just like working with whoever would come to him, who happened to be like the hippies in America, and then sending them out to influence just people walking down, just average people walking down the street. Of course, whenever possible, they wanted to influence the leaders, but that was Prabhupada's ideal strategy number one. But we see that with Prabhupada, that he would have a strategy for how he thought he thought would be the most effective way to, spread Krishna consciousness. And then if it wasn't working so well, he would immediately just go for plan B. Prabhupada always had a plan A, plan B, plan C. He had so many different strategies. And if one didn't work, he didn't stay trying to do it. He wouldn't stay like flogging a dead horse, If it wasn't going, he would get another horse, try another way. Prabhupada was very adaptable that way and so determined. We have to make this work. Okay, try this. That didn't work, try something else. That didn't work, try something else. Just keep trying. We're bound to get something that's going to work. Pray to Krishna for guidance and inspiration to know how to make this work. So like that. Okay, good. What else?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Srila Prabhupada writes in last paragraph that let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. So Prabhupada wants us to read these books in a systematic manner, just like we are doing in this Bhakti Vaibhava course, or we have done in Bhakti Shastri. So Prabhupada wants us to read these books, and they can help us to go back to Godhead and what to say. Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. Prabhupada wanted us to have a higher taste. And he knew that by hearing and reading literatures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, that will bring us to the higher taste of transcendental subject matter. And then we'll no longer be interested in reading mundane books, watching mundane movies and TV and things like that. And so, but in the beginning, we're a little jaundiced, he's mentioning that analogy from Nectar of Instruction. It'll act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. So in the beginning, it's natural that we don't have a taste for reading the scriptures. But as we go on reading, we'll get more and more taste. And you'll also experiencing that as you continue with this systematic Shastra studies. So now you're just in the beginning of Bhakti Vaibhava. And as you go on, Bhakti Vaibhava Module 2, and then Bhakti Vedanta, that happened to me, that when I first started reading, doing Bhakti Vaibhava, I was getting a lot out of it. I was learning a lot. But then as I kept going, by the time I got to Bhakti Vedanta, it was so relishable, it was just like so exciting, actually. Even before I started like systematic studies, when I was just reading Bhagavatam on my own as a new devotee, I would read and practically I wouldn't make it through a purport without dozing off. I'd be reading and then I'd wake up, find my place, keep reading, and then finish that purport, start another one. So yeah, in the beginning we don't have a taste, but by the end of finishing Bhakti Vedanta, I would be like reading it and feeling so invigorated, I wanted to read more, and it would be exciting, it's like so amazing, and wanting to write down every word and tell somebody what I read, like that. So gradually the taste awakens. You just need to keep going. Yes, Ganga Shakti.
Mataji, it's quite interesting that Prabhupada mentions the age of Kali several times in the purport. And it's almost as if he's forewarning us that don't expect anything better in this age. Just keep going. So it's like almost like a, to emphasize on the urgency of Krishna consciousness, that I have to focus on being Krishna conscious now at the personal level, at the level of the community, at the level of society. As an organization, we have to focus on what we can do now, because things are not going to get any better. They're only going to get worse.
Right. Yeah. That mood of urgency, that's one of the moods that I noted, was urgency. And Prabhupada uses that example of when there's a fire in the house. He says, when there's a fire in the house, it doesn't matter, if the person speaks the same language or whatever, somehow they can communicate. So this Kali Yuga, the situation now it's like a fire. We're like sitting in a forest fire, and we need to get out of it. And it's like, so in contrast to the previous verse where he says Chitrapadam, even though those literatures may be, composed so beautifully, so poetically, maybe great literature, but they're all just useless. Whereas on the other hand, literatures that describe the glories of the name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord, even though irregularly composed, even though there may be so many like grammatical mistakes, whatever, still they're heard, sung, and what is it? Srinvanti, Grinanti, heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So he's saying that it's so urgent, even if you're not a great writer, even if English is not your first language, even if whatever, you don't have a very big vocabulary, just write something, just speak, even if you're not a great speaker, just anyway, speak the Bhagavatam. This is so urgent. It doesn't matter if your communication skills are not great. Just somehow or other tell people about Krishna. It's so urgent. It's like the house is burning down and you can see it, and someone's sleeping in the house, and you're not going to go in and wake them up because you're afraid that, you don't have good communication skills. Forget it. Just get in there and save the person. So it's so urgent. And so we should all take some encouragement from this, that, we need to tell people, because sometimes, there are opportunities for speaking, and devotees will be like, no, I don't like to give class. I'm too shy. I don't know very many shlokas, or, I'm not a good speaker, or the language is not my first language, or whatever, so many excuses we give. It's like, no, speak the Bhagavatam. Whatever you know about Krishna, speak according to your realization. Whatever you've heard, just, repeat it. Anybody can do that. So, and also write, Prabhupada wants us to write our realizations. You can write articles and post them. You can start a blog. You can write a book. You can, whatever, nowadays everybody can just be like a self-published author because of the internet, and because also, Amazon publishing, it's so easy. You can just upload anything to Amazon and it's free. So just put things out there. Just fill up the space with Krishna. We have to Krishna eyes, re-spiritualize the atmosphere of this planet. for the benefit of people. Okay. And yeah, related to that, there's another that Prabhupada's mood of compassion, that he was really concerned about the ultimate good of people and bringing about peace in the world. And Prabhupada had this confidence. You see his confidence comes through in so many, he even says, he says, we are confident that if the transcendental message of Bhagavatam is received, it will be followed. And then he says, we are sure that even with all of our faults, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration. So he's like, we're confident, we are sure if we just do this, there's going to be success, there's going to be some good results. And and another one I had is that Srila Prabhupada is very humble, because just in relation to this point, he says, are presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail. And there are so many literary discrepancies, despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. Prabhupada's talking about his own books. He's talking about his own writing, that I'm writing in a foreign language. Certainly my endeavor is going to be a failure. As a literary presentation, it's going to fail. Now, there's so many discrepancies, so many mistakes, but still, I'm honestly just trying my best to present it in the proper way. And so he was also very dependent on his disciples, to edit his books, to correct his English grammar, and to make it, easily readable and understandable by people. The Prabhupada is very humble. He's admitting, yeah, I didn't do a great job. I need a lot of help with this, but I'm trying my best. So we should all, have that confidence and also that humility. Okay. All right. Did anyone have anything different that wasn't said already?
Mataji, I was thinking about the beginning of the purport, where Srila Prabhupada is saying the mood, and he's saying that the saint is talking about the saint. The saint is far above the level of an ordinary man, and he's always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord. So
Yeah.
I thought that is what is expected of us, that we should always be absorbed, and that's what our mood should be, that we should always be absorbed in glorifying the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, and absorbed in glorifying the Lord and broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord. So yeah, that was the point that I was making before, that a saintly person can take gold from a filthy place, but an ordinary intelligent person knows how to take gold from a filthy place, but a saint is above an ordinary man. He doesn't just take gold from a filthy place, he cleans up the place. And it's like, did I have a, well, it's going to come later. Yeah, so it cleans up the place and revolutionizes. That's what this verse is. It's about creating a revolution. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. So the people are viplavo means the revolution, and janataga means that the people, they're living these sinful lives, aga, like agasura, sinful demon. So the jana, the people, they're leading lives that are full of aga, or sin. But we need to change that. We need to cause a revolution. And if we can make people Krishna conscious and more people Krishna conscious, then more people are going to be writing books that are related to Krishna and creating movies and videos that are relating to Krishna. And, one day in the future, you'll go online and you'll just find that there's so much more there. I mean, gradually it's increasing, but it needs to increase more so that there's more Krishna consciousness and less mundane garbage. And then it becomes a place of pilgrimage for the swans instead of the crows. Okay, great. Thank you. So let's take a little break now. We'll take like a 10-minute break and then come back and continue. Okay, so we'll see you in 10 minutes. My time is 8:18 a.m. So I'm coming back at 8:28. All right, Hare Krishna. Make sure you stand up and stretch your legs, move around, get your blood flowing, and ready for the next half. Hare Krishna. Haribol, welcome back. So we're picking up now from text 12. Someone please read text 12, Sanskrit and English.
कर्म्यम् अपि अच्युत भाववर्जितम् न शोभते ज्ञानमलं निरञ्जनम् कुतः पुनः शाश्वत भद्र ईश्वरे न चार्पितं कर्म यदपि अकरणम्. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord?
All right, thank you. So yeah, so here Narada is pointing out that, okay, you've spoken about karma and you've spoken about jnana, but both of them are useless without bhakti. And Bhagavatam says that, you're probably familiar with this verse, Dharma swanustita pumsam vishvakshena katasuya notpada yad yadi ratim shrama eva hi kevalam. That even if one performs their karma, their dharma perfectly, but there's no, but by performing one's occupational duties nicely, one doesn't develop attraction, rati, notpada yad yadi ratim. If this rati for the Lord, for Vishvakshena kata, for the pastimes of the Lord, doesn't develop, then all his endeavors are just shrama, just a waste of time, useless waste of time. So, yeah. And he's pointing out here that karma kanda, or fruitive work that's not offered to the Lord, is simply painful, because the results of it, although one thinks they're desirable, but they're actually just limited and temporary. So they're not satisfying to the soul. And Krishna talks about that in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Antavat tu phalam tesham tad bhavat tyalpamedasam. That these fruits, the fruits of karma kanda, phalam, are antavat. They're perishable. So like a fruit, you put it on the shelf, it's just going to rot. So they look good in the beginning, but they become rotten very quickly. That's the nature of the results of karma kanda. You work hard for it, you get that fruit, and then it just rots within a short time. So you end up frustrated and disappointed. And then and that's just the nature of the material sense objects, that they're painful. And that's what Krishna says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyanta vanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. So yeah, these sense objects, or the pleasure that we get from contact with the material senses with their objects, it's dukkha yonaya evate. It's dukkha means distress. Yona means the womb. That it's like it's the womb from which distress takes birth. The sense gratification, that's what it is. It's the womb from which distress takes. In other words, it's the beginning. It's the source of our miseries. That's what it is. So why? Because adyanta vanta konteya, same thing. Because it's temporary. They have a beginning and an end. And so a wise person doesn't seek pleasure through sense gratification. So that's the first point, that karma is a problem when it's not offered to the Lord. And then also the naishkarmyam of the jnanis is also a problem when one has no conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yeah, he's making this point here that even if your jnana, your knowledge of self-realization, is niranjanam, free from material designations, still nashobate, it does not look well. Prabhupada translation, na shobhate, it does not look well. The word shobha, it means like a bright, beautiful, splendid. So it's just, it doesn't look good. It's not bright, it's not beautiful. So yeah, okay, it's naishkarmyam, that's good. So means that you're not attached to, material results. And it's niranjanam, it's free from material designation. So see this near something, and near means without. So like it's without this and it's without that, but what is it? We know what it's not, but what is it? So that's the whole problem with Gyan, is that you can recognize what's bad in this world and you can reject what's bad in this world, but then where are you? It's like you have a picture frame with a very ugly picture in it, right? Like nowadays there's a lot of art that's just kind of disturbing to look at. You look at it and it's just like dark and things are distorted, and so it's like you have a picture frame and you have that really ugly, disturbing picture in it, and it's hanging on your wall, and finally you're just like, oh, I can't stand that picture anymore. You take the picture out, and then you just got like an empty frame with just like your blank wall or a blank white piece of paper in the background. So, okay, you're no longer disturbed, but then, it's still nashobhate. It's not beautiful. So we don't just want to make it nothing. We want to make it beautiful. And so, yeah, the same thing about our activities, that we don't want to just stop our activities. We don't just want to like become inactive and, like that, but we want our activities to be basically, we don't just want no picture. We want a beautiful picture there. We want to put a picture of Krishna in the frame. And then when we look at it, then we'll feel not just like, okay, I'm not disturbed anymore, but we'll feel like I'm inspired. Wow, Krishna is so beautiful. When I look at him, I just feel like all the worries of the world just go away. And I'm inspired to serve, and I want to develop my relationship with him. And yeah, so he's saying that if our activities are achyuta bhava varjitam, if they're devoid of bhava for achyuta, then they'll just be dull, nashobhate. They won't be bright, they won't be beautiful. So this is what we're after. This is how to make our activities and our lives beautiful and bright, is by having some feeling for Krishna, developing achyuta bhava, feelings of love, loving devotion for Krishna. Okay, let's go to text 13.
अथो महाभागा भगवान् मोघदृक्शुचि श्रवाः सत्योरतो धृता व्रतः क्रमस्याखिल बन्धे मुक्तये समाधिना अनुस्मर तद्विचेष्टितम्. O Vyasdev, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in woe and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage.
Jai, thank you. So yeah, so now it is again encouraging Vyasadeva. He's like, you can do this. You're fully capable of this. And he calls him Mahabhaga, oh fortunate one. He says, you are Amoga Drik, right? We heard that before, and we're going to hear it again. That's something that he keeps repeating. Amoga Drik, the perfect seer, whose knowledge is useful. It's not useless knowledge, it's useful knowledge. And he says also that you are Shuchi Shrava, that you're famous for your pure and spotless character. Satya Rata, you're devoted to the truth. And Drita Vrata, you're determined in your vows. So you have all these good qualities. You're capable of thinking of the past time. So do it, and so now he gives an instruction that Samadhina Anusmara. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he's not speaking in the third person, that one should remember, but he's speaking in the second person. It's a command that you should remember. Like I'm instructing you, do this. Think of the Lord's pastimes. Absorb yourself in trance, in samadhi anusmara. So yeah, tat veshtitam means the pastimes, and of who? Of the Lord. Urukramasya kila bandha muktaye. Of the Lord whose name is Urukrama, or one whose activities are wonderful, supernatural, performer of supernatural activities, and who can deliver, who can deliver one from the material bondage, who can free one from material bondage. So, yeah, and because of your qualifications, because all of the above qualifications, the details of these pastimes will be revealed to you. So you just need to think about them, meditate on them, and then anusmara. It's not just smara, it's anusmara. So anu means two things. One is ongoing. In other words, think about them for a long time, like continue to think about them. And then also anu means following. So it means, so it's like following, like after following that, following your meditation on the Lord's pastimes, then you should also describe them to others. So think about these pastimes, get really absorbed them into samadhi, get into a trance of remembering these pastimes, and then following that, describe them to others, tell them to us. I'm going to read. Actually, can someone read the last paragraph of the purport? It's kind of a long paragraph, but go ahead. Whoever's enthusiastic to read.
There are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, are specifically recommended to suffering humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. The Bhagavad Gita is the spoken message of the Lord himself, recorded by Vyasadeva, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all the living beings all over the universe for total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives, who are completely immersed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of their Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. The descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in oral reception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. A liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses, only one can serve the sense proprietor Rishikesh, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the perfect description of all perfect personality of Godhead by the all perfect personality Sri Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to draw your attention to this couple of sentences here. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. So Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva to meditate on these pastimes because Vyasadeva is qualified. He's a qualified person, and Narada is confident that if because he's such a perfect devotee, that if he meditates on the pastimes of the Lord will reveal those pastimes to him, and all the details of those pastimes will become known to him. But if a person who's not a pure devotee sits down and tries to meditate and hope that the Lord will reveal his pastimes to him, it's not going to happen, even if he speculates for many, many years. So it's emphasizing the qualification. And that's what this verse is all about. Now it is saying, you are capable, you're such a great devotee, you're the perfect seer, spotless character, you're devoted to the truth, you determine their vows, you're capable of meditating and seeing the pastimes of the Lord and explaining them for others, so please do it. And then Prabhupada's saying that Srimad Bhagavatam is the result of that. It's the fruit of that, of Vyasadev's meditation. The perfect description of the all-perfect personality of Godhead by the all-perfect personality Vyasadeva. So such a wonderful literature we have here at our fingertips by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Okay, let's go to text 14.
ततोऽन्यथा किंचन यद् विवक्षता पृथक् दृशस् तत्कृत रूप नामभिः न कर्हिचित् क्वापि च दुष्टितः मतिर्लभेत वाताहत nor ivaspādam. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place.
Thank you. So after telling Vyasadeva to describe the pastimes of the Lord, now he adds a statement to the effect of, so speak about the pastimes of the Lord and don't describe anything as being separate from the Lord. Because, actually nothing is separate from the Lord because Krishna is the absolute truth. But if someone describes, like Vyas, describe the names and the forms and the rituals for worshiping demigods, then it makes them seem separate from the Lord. So it's confusing and distracting, and that's the main problem, that these things actually distract us. Not only they're not describing the Lord directly, but they're distracting us from being able to focus on the Lord. And he uses this word, dushtita mati. So mati means the mind, and stita means situated, and then du means like improperly or wrongly or badly situated. So these things, they cause the mind, when we describe things that in such a way that it makes them seem separate from Krishna, then it causes our minds to be just badly situated. And then he gives this analogy that it's like you're in a boat heading towards a destination, then all of a sudden there's a strong wind that comes and blows you off course. The Sanskrit uses is vata ahata. So vata means the wind, and ahata means like attacked. It's like you get attacked by this strong wind and it just blows your ship off course and you go another way. So then you become badly situated. You become dushtita. Your boat is not situated on the course that it's supposed to be on. So that's the problem with the previous, like a lot of the Vedic work that Vyasadeva did. It was actually causing this dustitamati, people to be confused, thinking that there's something separate from Krishna. And that's why, like, nowadays there's all these different religions in the world, and then people think, yeah, I don't worship Krishna, I worship Lord Shiva, or I worship, Hanuman, or whatever, right? But actually everybody's worshiping Krishna. Krishna says, Mama Vartmanu Vartante, Manushya Partha Sarvashaha. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Everybody is worshiping me. They think they're worshiping the demigods, they're actually worshiping me. They think that the gifts are given by demigods, they're given by me alone. So everything is Krishna. And so when things are chunked out, like, okay, if you want to worship Shiva, this is who Shiva is, these are the rituals for worshiping Lord Shiva, this is the mood, this is the prayers, whatever. And then if you want to worship Krishna, this is how you do it. It's like, no, he has to present it in such a way that Krishna is the goal of everything. And everybody's worshiping Krishna, even Lord Shiva is worshiping Krishna. And Lord Shiva is, Vaishnavanam, Yata Shambhu. So like everything needs to be connected to Krishna. And that was the fault of the Bhagavatam, is he was presenting things in such a way that it seemed to be separate. And so it was distracting. And Krishna uses the same analogy in Bhagavad Gita 267, that as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So then someone might wonder, why are we so easily swept off course by these things? So then Narada explains why in text 15. Will someone please read?
जुगुप्सितं धर्मकृतेऽनुशासतः स्वभावरक्तस्य महान् व्यक्तिक्रमः यद्वाक्यतो धर्म इति तरः स्थितो न मन्यते तस्य निवारणं जनाः. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable, because they are guided under your instructions. They will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions.
Thank you. So yeah, here Narada is using very strong language. This word jugupsitam in Sanskrit, I looked at it in the dictionary. It means, Prabhupada translates it verily condemned. Some other meanings are like abominable, disgusting, detestable, heinous. It's like you did a really, really bad thing. This was really bad. And then he also says vyatikrama, which Prabhupada translates unreasonable. So krama means step. And then vyati, it's like you misstepped, you stepped in the wrong direction. Did you already cover this? No, this comes later in Bhagavatam, the idea of maryada vyatikrama, that the overstepping the authority, overstepping the guru, going to the wrong person, or a breach of etiquette. Maryada vyatikrama means a breach of etiquette. So it's literally like misstepped. You did the wrong thing. You made a mistake. So yeah, so he's basically saying this is a really terrible thing that you've done. And why is it so terrible? Prabhupada explains here in the purport towards I'm reading from like the middle of the first paragraph. To revolve in the cycle of transmigration in a series of lives numbering 8,400,000 is an imprisoned life for the condemned conditioned souls. The human form of life is a chance to get out of this imprisoned life. And as such, the only occupation of the human being is to reestablish his lost relationship with God. Under the circumstances, one should never be encouraged in making a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religious functions. Such diversion of the human energy results in misguided civilization. Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc., and his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement, because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. So, yeah, so people are very attracted to anything that offers them material pleasure, because he says that the general tendency is that people are naturally inclined to enjoy. So we're very much inclined towards material enjoyment. So if someone says, yeah, you can enjoy sense gratification, then we're going to go for that. You know, immediately the mind is like, yes, this is what we're looking for. Materialistic mind is like that. But then the whole thing is that here we are in the material world and we have the human form of life. And this is our chance, like after so many births, after so many, transmigrations of the soul through different species, we finally come to the human form of life. And finally, we have the opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. And we realize that we have to do some kind of religious activity, like it's through religion. We need to connect with God if we're going to go to God. So then people who are, a little more intelligent, they're looking for some religious process by which they can connect to God so they can perfect their lives, get out of this mess and go, to the eternal spiritual kingdom of God. But then if they're misled, by someone who's an actual authority, misleads them, telling them that, oh yeah, you want to go back to the kingdom of God? Here's the Vedic knowledge, just read it, it'll tell you how to do it. And then you go there and read it, and it tells you how to do karma kanda rituals for sense gratification. Then it's like the poor person, in the name of religion, thinking that they're doing a religious activity, they're actually just increasing their own material bondage. So it's a really bad thing. It's like, that's why it's called cheating religion. And yeah, it's a diversion of the human energy, resulting in a misguided civilization. And you know, if somebody says, hey, what are you doing? You're just doing some material activity for material results. I thought you wanted to go to the kingdom of God. You need to worship God for that. But it says, no, I read it here in the Vedas, by Srila Vyasadeva. He's like, Shakti Vaishavatar, literary incarnation of God. He's an authority. So I'm following what he said. So how can I go wrong? So that's why Narada is saying, because you said it, because you said it, and it carries so much weight, people are going to do it, and they're going to be cheated, and it's going to be your fault, and this is terrible. You've done a very bad thing. This is jugoops. It's abominable. It's unreasonable. You've misstepped. You've made a big mistake. So Narada Muni is being very heavy with him. That's also a lesson to us, that because now also, you're studying Bhakti Vaibhava, and people will respect you for that. And I'm sure many people respect you already. Some of you are senior devotees. You may be leaders in your communities. So we have to be careful, because those of us who are in positions of authority, if we say something, people are going to take it seriously, and they're going to follow it. There's a good chance they'll be influenced by it. So we need to be very careful how we instruct people, how we guide them, what information we give them, make sure it's appropriate for their level, make sure that we're not, committing some vyatikrama, misstepping, mistake, committing some wrong from a position of authority. So these kinds of things are very bad. What to speak of really bad things like, pastoral abuse and that kind of thing, but even just when we're trying to guide someone, make sure that we're very focused on that person as a spirit soul, an eternal servant of Krishna, and not looking at material considerations. I mean, sometimes they need to be taken into consideration, but that shouldn't be the primary thing. We shouldn't be guiding them of how to have a more comfortable material life, how to solve your family problems, how to make more money in your business or whatever. But we should be giving them guidance how to get themselves as a soul back to the level of pure devotional service, awaken their love of God so they can go back to Godhead. And that's why we're studying the Bhagavatam, so that we can do that. So someone who has studied the Bhagavatam, who has a Bhakti Vaibhava degree, who has a Bhakti Vedanta degree, that's what is expected. That's what Narada Muni is expecting of us, is to give others that knowledge and not some material thing. We don't want Narada Muni showing up and telling us, Jugupsitam Dharma Kritena Shashata. We don't want to hear those words coming from his mouth. We want to hear him saying, well done, sadhu, sadhu, you did the right thing. Okay. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, so Narada Muni is also saying that due to being materially attached, the people in general, they can't understand that these karma kanda activities are just keeping them into material bondage, and that's a problem for them. They can't understand it, but you can. So you need to show them what real religion is. You need to point that out to them. Okay. So that's let's read the next verse, text 16.
Anantamanas tato bhavan darshaya cheshchitam vibhu. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality retired from the activities of material happiness deserve deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through the descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's what I was saying, that Narada Muni is urging Vyasadeva that they can't understand because those who are not so well situated due to material attachment, they can't understand the Lord. They can't understand what is the right thing to do. They need to be shown. They need to be shown the ways of transcendental realization. And he uses that word darshaya, tato bhavan darshaya chestitam vivo. So yeah, therefore, bhavan, your goodness, darshaya, show them, give them a darshan of what? Of chestitam vivo. Chestitam means the activities, and vivo means the Lord, the great, powerful Lord. Because you can see them. They can't see them, but you can see them, so you need to show them. The idea is that the Lord is difficult to understand. He can only be understood by those who are nivrittita sukham. In other words, those who have given up material happiness. And there's a similar verse in the very beginning of the 10th canto, just before Shukadeva Goswami is going to start reciting all the pastimes of Krishna. He says, Nivrittatar upagiyamanad. He said, these pastimes are sung, are described by those who are nivrittatar, similar to what Narada is saying, nivrittita sukham. So sukha means material happiness, and tarsher means similar. It means tarsher comes from trishna. It means thirst. It means those who have a thirst for material sense enjoyment. In other words, like lust or material desire. So those who are nivrittatar means they no longer are interested in material enjoyment. They've given up. They're free from lust, and so. So they can speak. Someone who is free from material desire, then they can speak about the pastimes of the Lord. But those such people are very rare. And the majority of the people are here what Narada Muni describes as pravartamanasya gunair, that they're pushed by the three modes of material nature on the path of material enjoyment. And as a result, they become anatmanas. Like atma means the self or the soul or spirit, and anatma means not spirit. So the result is that they're devoid of spiritual knowledge. They have no spiritual connection. So it requires somebody else to connect them. I'll read the last paragraph here of the purport. Or somebody read that. Somebody just read the last paragraph of the purport.
Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medicinal doses. Because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby, they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from material diseases. The expert devotees can also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstances. Devotional service is dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of the materialistic population. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic man of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization.
Thank you. So here's another aspect of Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission, that he wanted us to come up with novel ways to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time, place, and circumstances. Find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of materialistic population. So he's calling for innovation, innovative preaching strategies. You know, like we saw that with so many of our acharyas, like Narottam Das Thakur. He wrote songs in Bengali, simple Bengali language, and used popular melodies to attract people to hearing about Lord Chaitanya and Radha and Krishna. And then, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also did the same with his songs. And we see how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he started printing a daily newspaper. He made use of the printing press. He started making these diorama exhibits and preaching in English and sending devotees overseas. He would invite, government officials and VIPs, and he would have these fairs. He would have these like fairs where we'd have all kinds of rides and games, just like any fair. But then he would also have the devotees with and the rides and games would attract people. And then they would also have the devotees there doing kirtan and have book tables, book distribution, prasadam distribution. So, and sometimes he would wear Western clothes. Some of his disciples would wear Western clothes for preaching. So he did all these innovations. And then, of course, Srila Prabhupada also came up with so many more innovations. He started the whole life membership program. He really did like full-scale book distribution with big books and not just a newsletter or magazine. He started the Sunday feast, the library party, restaurants, padayatra, all these things. He had one of his main strategies was his dancing white elephant strategy of bringing the Westerners back to India to revitalize Gaudiya Vaishnavism in India. So, and nowadays there are even more strategies. There's like we have all these marketing on the internet, Bhakti Vriksha programs. Devotees do this like Damodar during Kartik. They go with the Damodar plate and go door to door, get people to offer lamps and like that. There's just so many things. There's Krishna West and Motel Gita and mantra lounges and metro yoga and Harinam Ruchi, and there's just so many different strategies. And so Srila Prabhupada loved these things. He just loved it when the devotees would tell the devotees, rack your brains to think of new ways to present Krishna consciousness so that people, all different kinds of people, will be able to be attracted to it and accept it. And just like, find the way to inject it into their dull brains somehow or other. So Narada is giving a similar instruction here to Vyasadeva. Okay. All right. So then having heard that, all these instructions, now Vyasadeva may have raised a concern that I've given people karma kanda so that they can engage their material propensities in a pious way for their elevation, because they have these material propensities, like Narada's just said. If they don't do them in a pious way, like following a Vedic program for sense gratification, they're going to be doing vikarma or even ugra karma, because the tendency is there. So if I don't give them a way to do it in a way that they can be gradually elevated, then they're still going to do it and they're going to be degraded. So now if I tell them to give up karma kanda and take to pure bhakti and they fall down, then they might just fall way down. Like they might end up worse off than they started, because now they've also lost their faith in karma kanda, because I've, said how that's basically just, decoration of the dead body. So if that's just mundane, nonsense activity, then they may as well just do illicit activities and sinful activities, because it's all kind of lumped in the same category now. So one could say that it seems that Vyas had this concern. So then in the next verse, text 17, Narada addresses this. Someone please read text 17.
Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam hare bhajan apakvota pate tato yadi Yatra kva va bhadram abhud amushya kim ko vartha apto bhajatam swadharmata. One who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything.
Thank you. So Narada Muni is saying here that yes, a devotee may fall down, but even if they do fall down, it's not a huge problem. One, because whatever they did in bhakti will never be lost. And Krishna says that, right? Bhagavad Gita, Neha bhikramanasasti pratyavayo navidyate. That on this path, there's no loss or diminution. So on the other hand, that's in contrast to material activity where everything is lost. So even if someone practices bhakti for only 5 minutes and then goes back to material life, it's more valuable than lifetimes of karma kanda. Because this pious credits that you get from karma kanda, they're just temporary and they're just gone. And the pleasure, the benefits you get from them are also going to be gone. And yeah, whereas spiritual credits are eternal. So it's like a tiny diamond is more valuable than truckloads of sand. So even if, you know, but even that analogy doesn't work, because you can also lose the diamond. But the thing is, you can never lose bhakti. So it's just, it's infinitely more valuable. It's like you can't even compare the value of bhakti to material activity. So that's one thing, that if a devotee falls down, it's not a problem because their bhakti will never be lost. And then the other reason why it's not a big problem is because even if a devotee falls down from bhakti, he doesn't fall down like non-devotees. And there's a nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33 that says that. This is it's a prayer. Demigods, they say, O Madhava, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of the Goddess of Fortune, if devotees completely in love with you sometimes fall from the path of devotion, they do not fall like non-devotees, for you still protect them. Thus they fearlessly traverse the heads of their opponents and continue to progress in devotional service. So that's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, that even if a devotee falls down and commits some abominable activity, it's not a big problem because I'm protecting him. He says, Konteya Pratijaniti, Konteya Pratijanihi Name Bhaktya Pranashyati. That declare it boldly, my devotee will never perish. I'm protecting him. Don't worry. He left me, but I didn't leave him, because if someone surrenders to me once, like Lord Ramachandra says, if somebody even once in their life says, my Lord, I am yours, I take that person and I become their guardian from then forward. And I never abandon them, even if they leave Krishna consciousness, even if they stop devotional service, even if they do sinful activities, I'm still protecting them. I'm going to be there for them. And it's all going to be good in the end. So we see that Prabhupada gives some examples here in the purport of Bharat Maharaj. And we're going to see how these, even though they have some fall downs, they don't actually fall down. So like Bharat Maharaj, he got attracted to the deer. He had to take birth as a deer, but he didn't have animal consciousness. He was in a deer body, but he had, devotee consciousness. And he was even more attracted to devotional service because he realized the mistake he made. And he was in the body of a deer, so it was good for him. It was like, he couldn't make any offenses. He was very humble, It was actually helpful for him. And then next life, he became Jad Bharat, and then he got a human form. And he, by his choice, he chose to just, just totally not be engaged in the material world at all, not get attached to anything, and just focus. So there was no actual fall down, but it was basically like 3 lives of continual progress back to Godhead. And Chitraketu, it was the same thing. He made some, it wasn't even, he didn't even make an offense, but Parvati misinterpreted his laughing as an offense. And so he got cursed to become Vritrasura. So it looks like a fall down that a devotee became a demon, but actually Vritrasura was such a great devotee. Some of the prayers of Vritrasura are some of the most inspiring prayers in the whole Bhagavatam. And he definitely outdoes Indra with his devotion to Krishna. And Vritrasura goes back to Godhead. So whereas Chitraketu, he may have had to live, that was way back in, it was probably happening in like Treta Yuga or something, where they lived for hundreds of thousands of years. And he would have had to stay in the material world a lot longer, but then he got cursed and he got killed really quickly and in full Krishna consciousness and went back to Godhead. So actually it was a blessing. It wasn't a fall down at all. And then Ajamil, you could say, yeah, he actually fell down. He actually really was doing sinful activities and very materialistic and horrible in some ways, like to his parents, etc. But he came back to bhakti. Krishna protected him by inspiring him to name his son Narayan, inspiring him to remember, to make that son his pet son, to remember that son and call out his name at the time of death. On calling his name, he remembered the bhakti that he did before in his previous life. And then he got a second chance, and then he became very serious and focused. And he also perfected his life in devotional service. So all these examples show us that, like Prabhupada writes here in the purport, that let's see, even if there's chance of falling down, let's see, yeah, stress is given here to surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord, even if there is a chance of falling down, because even though one falls down from the prescribed duties of devotional service, he'll never forget the lotus feet of the Lord. Once engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, one will continue the service in all circumstances. We have examples also from our own, devotees in ISKCON, that there was one Prabhupada disciple, maybe you know the story, that, he was serving and then he left. And then he got involved in really sinful activities. I think he became like a heroin addict or something. He was injecting, heroin in his veins. And then because of the, not being careful with the needles, he was using needles that other people had used for injecting, and he got AIDS from contaminated blood. And then he was dying of AIDS in the hospital. And some devotees got to know. And so they went to be with him at the time of death by Krishna's arrangement. See, this is another way that Krishna protected him, is that somehow the devotees got to know that he was dying, where he was. They went there. And then I think he was unconscious. Maybe he wasn't even aware that the devotees were there, but they were chanting for him, and they, put the Ganga water and garland and all that kind of stuff. And then just when he was breathing, just about to breathe his last breath, because before that he was just unconscious, not moving, just like lying there. He sat up. He sat like bolt upright in his hospital bed, and his eyes opened big and wide. And he said, "Prabhupada, you came." And the devotees were like, and then he just lied back down and left his body. So it just shows how, Krishna, even though a devotee falls, Krishna always protects them. Krishna is so grateful. That's one of his 64 transcendental qualities. He's so grateful for any amount of service that's rendered, even for a short time. And so, that's why he's saying that, yeah, Narada Muni's saying, don't worry, even if they fall down, Krishna's going to protect them. They're going to be better off than the materialist, even if they're materially successful and they do everything pious and all that. It's all useless, but just a little bit of devotional service can save one. So, yeah. Okay, therefore, now he's going to give further advice in text 18. So please read that.
तस्यैव हेतो प्रयतेतो कोविदो न लभ्यते यद् प्रमाताम् उपर्यथा तल्लाभ्यते दुःखवद् अन्यथा सुखम् कालेन सर्वत्र गभीरहंसः. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet Brahmalok down to the lowest planet, Patal. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them.
Thank you. Yeah, so not only is material gain impermanent, but in any case, it's predestined based on our previous karma. So no matter how much we try to be happy or rich or beautiful, we're not going to get any more than we would even if we didn't try at all. Or if we do get some wealth or position, we're quickly going to lose it because we weren't meant to have it. So then, rather than wasting our time endeavoring for things that either we're not going to get or we're going to get and we're going to lose, or we're going to get anyway without trying for them, then we should just use our time and energy and intelligence to go back to Godhead, where we can be eternally blissful. Because even if we do good work in this life, thinking that we're going to build up our good karma so we can have a good position in the next life, that position is never going to be as good as going back to Godhead. Yeah, even if we go to the higher planet, the highest planet, Brahmaloka, it's nothing compared to the happiness of being with Krishna in the spiritual world. So, yeah, that's a big mistake that people make in the material world. They think if I work more, I get a second job, I'll earn some more money, and then I'll be happy. And no, you're only going to get, working more is not going to get you more money. It's just going to make you tired. And it's actually going to, because that work is going to implicate you in karma, and the greed with which you're performing the duty is just going to drag you down, because the mode of passion always results in distress. And Prahlad Maharaj also speaks something very similar in 7.741 of Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, a materialistic person, thinking himself very advanced in intelligence, continually acts for economic development. But again and again, as enunciated in the Vedas, he's frustrated by material activities, either in this life or in the next. Indeed, the results one obtains are inevitably the opposite of those one desires. So we're trying to be happy, and we end up miserable. So he's saying, inevitably, it always happens. It's not just that it happens to people with bad luck. It happens to everybody, that the more you try for material happiness, the more miserable you become. And he continues the same thing in the next verse, text 42. In this material world, every materialist desires to achieve happiness and diminish his distress, and therefore he acts accordingly. Actually, however, one is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. As soon as one begins his activities for happiness, his conditions of distress begin. So it's sort of counterintuitive, you know, that the way to be happy is to not endeavor for happiness. As soon as we try to be happy, we become distressed. So just forget about it. You know, don't waste your time trying to be happy in this world. Just try to please Krishna, and then everything is going to be good. So, yeah, I'm going to read a little bit here from the very end of the purport. Prabhupada writes, miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life, and they are obtained in Brahmaloka and in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life of demigods and also in the life of dogs and hogs. The miseries of mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality, but no one is free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Similarly, everyone has his destined happiness also. No one can get more or less of these things simply by personal endeavors. Even if they are obtained, they can be lost again. One should not therefore waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of everyone's life. Yeah, so that's a very clear point here. Now, Narada reiterates that devotees fall down is not a big problem, because they may fall down, but then they're going to bounce back up because they've already tasted the nectar, they've already relished the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord, and nothing can compare to it. So that's the point here in text 19. So go ahead and someone please read text 19.
Na vajano jatu kathanchana vrajen Mukunda sevi anyavad anga samshritam Smaran mukundangri upaguhanam punar Vihatumicchenna rasa grahojana. My dear Vyas, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, fruitive workers, etc. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again.
Jai. Yeah. So, yeah, even while a devotee is in the fallen condition, having left the association of devotees and given up the practice of bhakti, although they suffer, it's not due to karma. That's what Prabhupada is saying here. I'm reading from the purport here, a little bit into the first paragraph. Even though he falls down, a devotee is never to be considered the same as a fallen karmi. The karmi suffers the results of his own fruitive actions, whereas a devotee is reformed by chastisement directed by the Lord himself. So, yeah, so non-devotees suffer according to their karma, but when a devotee suffers, it's not according to karma. It's that suffering is administered by the personal hand of the Lord. So the sufferings of an orphan and the sufferings of a beloved child of a king are not one and the same. An orphan is really poor because he has no one to take care of him. But a beloved son of a rich man, although he appears to be on the same level as an orphan, is always under the vigilance of his capable father. A devotee of the Lord, due to wrong association, sometimes imitates the fruitive workers who want to lord it over the material world. Similarly, a neophyte devotee foolishly thinks of accumulating some power in exchange for devotional service. Such foolish devotees are sometimes put into difficulty by the Lord himself. But as a special favor, the Lord may remove all material paraphernalia. By such action, the bewildered devotee is forsaken by all friends and relatives, and so he comes to his senses again by the mercy of the Lord and is set right to execute his devotional service. So, yeah, the sufferings that a devotee experiences when he falls down, those are all just given to him by Krishna in order to rectify the mentality that led to the fall down, so that he can come back to devotional service and not fall down again, to come back with determination. So yeah, and he will come back, because like it says here, is that because he's relished the taste of service to the Lord, then he's going to come back to it, because there's nothing that can compare to that. The whole reason that people leave bhakti to try to think is because they think they can be happier in the material world. They think that there's some happiness that they can't get in bhakti, that they can get out there somewhere. And so they go searching the whole world to try to find happiness and trying everything. And then when they're frustrated, because they might get some pleasures here and there, but they're never going to get anything that compared to that experience they had, in Krishna consciousness, in that kirtan, or that, class, or the whatever, ecstatic moment in spiritual life. Nothing compares to that. So they go looking for something better. They're not going to find anything better. So they're going to come back for sure. And yeah, there's a nice verse from the 10th canto, 10:87-40. This is from Prayers of the Personified Vedas. Says, when a person realizes you, he no longer cares about his good and bad fortune arising from past pious and sinful acts, since it is you alone who control this good and bad fortune. Such a realized devotee also disregards what ordinary living beings say about him. Every day he fills his ears with your glories, which are recited in each age by the unbroken succession of Manu's descendants, and thus you become his ultimate salvation. So the point here is that that the devotee understands that whatever happens in their life, whether it's good or bad, whether it's during their practice of bhakti or even after falling down from bhakti, it's all just enacted by Krishna alone. It says that for a devotee, you alone control this good and bad fortune. And so if a devotee makes some mistake and suffers as a result, then even if people might criticize the devotee doesn't care because they're like, this was Krishna. Everything in my life happens by Krishna. So, this was Krishna, that was Krishna, and Krishna's just teaching me lessons and something I have to learn here. So that's why he says that one should, even if a devotee commits the most abominable action, it should be considered saintly, because it may be that Krishna played some part in getting the devotee to go through an experience for their gradual rectification, right? Like we could criticize Maharaj Bharat for being too attached to his deer and look, he had to take birth as a deer, but that was all arranged by Krishna. So what can we say? That's why we shouldn't criticize devotees, because maybe this is Krishna's doing. Like, why did Maharaj Parikshit get so upset about not being welcomed by, what was his name? Shamika Rishi. And why did Shamika, it was totally out of character. Why did Shamika Rishi become so, it was totally uncharacteristic for Parikshit to throw a dead snake on a sage. Like, Parikshit was a devotee. He respected the Brahmins like God, wouldn't just throw a dead snake over him. It was just like, Krishna inspired him to do that. And then he inspired Shringi to curse him. And all these things just so that the Bhagavatam could be spoken. And so sometimes Krishna puts devotees in very awkward, very abnormal situations that you would never expect, because he wants something else to happen. Either that devotee to learn something, or somebody else to learn something, or something else to happen that's going to benefit somebody somehow. So it's always for the benefit. Everything that Krishna does is for the good of everyone. That God is all good in all circumstances at all times. So we have to have faith in that, and not condemn devotees, even if they do apparently fall down. But just always continue being their well-wishers, maybe from a distance, but always try to be the devotee's well-wisher and look for Krishna's plan. Okay, let me just read the last. The last paragraph says, pure devotional service is so spiritually relishable that a devotee becomes automatically uninterested in material enjoyment. That is a sign of perfection in progressive devotional service. A pure devotee continuously remembers the lotus feet of Krishna and does not forget him even for a moment, not even in exchange for all the opulence of the three worlds. So once we're convinced that taste, actually the word here, upaguhanam, means embracing. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on that word. He says it's not just that the devotees under the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. The lotus feet are embracing the devotee. I don't know how feet embrace, but anyways, he says that that's what Narada is saying, is that he's embraced, those lotus feet of the Lord are embracing the devotee, even when he falls down. So we should have faith that we're always in the embrace of the Lord's lotus feet, and he'll protect us and give us shelter in all circumstances, even if we do something really stupid. Okay, we're going to stop here because our time is up. So we'll pick up from text 20 and finish the chapter tomorrow. But I want to give you a little bit of time, even though we're a little over time. But any questions on these topics? I had a feeling we weren't going to finish this section, but I thought I'll just prepare, because so many important verses. It's like many key verses, like 10 and 11 and 17, and this one here that we just did, 18. Yes, Rukmini, Hari Sevani.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for the session. Mataji, my question is that we see that the senior devotees sometimes fall sick, and we recently saw that His Holiness Kadam Kanand Swami Maharaj got cancer, and for 6 months he was in the last time, 6 months he was in Vrindavan. So it was like Krishna wanted to, and so many instances we see in Bhagavatam also that all the pure devotees suffered a lot. So I asked one question in Bhakti Shastri. They said that Krishna wants to glorify the devotees, so he he does these things in the life of devotee. It is about the senior devotees. How about the neophytes or small like neophyte devotees, or who are just come into the bhakti, or who are not uttamadhikari or even madhyamadhikari, kanishtadhikari? So if something bad happens in the life of those devotees, so how to understand?
Yeah. So then he's trying to break our material attachments. Like he says, how does that, what's that verse that Prabhupada would quote in relation to his losing his business and all that? How does it start? I'm blanking out. Anyways, it's 1088.8. It talks about how Krishna, the first installment of Krishna's mercy is that he takes everything away. And then his family and friends abandon him. He suffers one distress after another. So sounds very nice, right? We should tell people that, yeah, become a devotee. Krishna's going to take away everything. He's going to make you totally impoverished. You're going to experience one distress after another. You're going to be reduced to such a pathetic life that all your friends are going to reject you. Even your family is going to abandon you. Haribol. So yeah. So Krishna does that. He takes away our material attachments and whatever we're attached to. So we may be attached to position, we may be attached to money, we may be attached to our bodies. So whatever it is that we're attached to, Krishna will make an arrangement for us to realize that this thing's not really something worth being attached to, and I just want to be attached to you, Krishna. So when we have health issues, that can teach us, that can give us a realization that we're not these bodies, that these bodies are a place of suffering. The soul is within the body, and the body is a cause of so much suffering, because a materialistic mind tends to think that the body is, the senses are vehicles for obtaining pleasure. Right? When the eyes see something nice, it's pleasurable. When we listen to nice music, it's pleasurable. When the genitals are gratified, it's pleasurable. When we touch something nice, when we smell something nice, it's pleasurable. So all these things, like we think this body is for my enjoyment. I can enjoy my senses. I can get pleasure through all these different senses. This is so exciting. The world's full of sense objects, and I've got these senses. Let me go. Right? Go get them. And so when we get sick, when we have some illness where we're feeling, pain in the body and distress and weakness and all kinds of symptoms like that, then we realize the actual nature of the body is to give us pain. It's a cause of distress. It's a lump of ignorance, and it's a terrible contraption to be in. So, I mean, I've often had that experience, even before becoming a devotee, that, whenever I was really sick, I'd be lying in bed and feeling like, and understanding that I'm not my body, understanding that this body is doing its thing and that I'm separate from it. Because even though my body is racked with all kinds of symptoms of distress, but, I'm okay. There's an aspect of myself that is not touched by this, it's not affected by this. And then I would always pray, I would even before Krishna consciousness, I was a Christian, so I would pray a lot. And I wouldn't just pray, please free me from this disease. I generally wouldn't really even pray that at all. I would just pray to be connected. I'd pray to have a relationship with the Lord. Realizing that this body is not where it's at. This is not what life is about. This is not how to be happy. And there's got to be another way. And please guide me to that other way. So it's very helpful, actually. Super helpful. And also while you're sick, you're not feeling lust, all those things go away. Lust, greed, whatever. You become very humble, very, calm. The senses are all just dysfunctional. So it's actually a good state of being to be in. You become humble. You realize that you're humble, you're dependent, material life is suffering, and you take shelter of devotees. It's great. Everybody's like, yeah, tell me about it. Okay.
Thank you so much. But just can I ask one more thing? But in the life of a sadhaka, bad health is obstacle in sadhana and seva. So how to understand this? If a sincere devotee wants to serve the Lord and wants to do the sadhana, but and it's an obstacle. So how can
Yeah.
we understand?
Well, there's no material impediment to devotional service. Devotional service can be practiced under any circumstances. So the body is not an impediment, because what is devotional service? Hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, right? All those things, they don't even require really the body. Like you can, of course, if you're deaf, you can't hear, but you can always remember Krishna. And the main devotional service is just manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskiru mamai, and then mamai vaishyasi satyam te pratiyajani priyosime. The main devotional service is just to think of Krishna. And the reason we chant is to get us to think of Krishna. The reason we hear about Krishna is so we can think about Krishna, so that we can remember him. So the main thing is all about remembering Krishna. And that's what Bhagavatam says, that the main occupation, the goal, is to remember Ante Narayana Smritihi, to remember the Lord at the time of death. And to remembering Krishna is a service. So even if all you can do is lie in bed and remember Krishna, that's pure devotional service. That's much higher standard of devotional service than somebody who's like, on the altar worshiping the deity, or out distributing books and thinking about other things. And thinking about sense gratification, or thinking about, what they're going to do. Yeah, when they get off the altar and go back to their room or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like the main thing is to remember Krishna.
Thank you so very much, Mataji.
Okay, anything else? All right, looks like everybody's feeling like we've been talking here a long time already. It's time to go. Yeah, so I'll see you all tomorrow. Make sure you finish the chapter, read all the verses and purports, and tomorrow will be my last class with you. So I look forward to seeing you there. Hare Krishna. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna.